All right, so it's time to come back and let's utilize the remaining minutes. And it's my honor to introduce the moderator for this session, Ziad Khayyat, who is a Senior Sustainable Development Officer and Water, Climate Change and Natural Resources Sustainability at UNESCWA. Please, can we give him a warm welcome? Over to you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll ask people to come back to the first side event and last session of the first day. And thank you for those who are with us, the true core team, the true champions of water finance. So thank you again for staying with us. This side event, we have the pleasure to hold this side event on mobilizing climate finance for water in the Arab region. As you all know, and as many of you have alluded to, that the Arab region is one of the most water scarce regions in the world, with 19 out of the 22 Arab countries being water scarce, more than 400 people residing in these countries. This water scarcity affects water security, affects food security, economic development, and the needs of the water sector are huge. However, they have been underfinanced, under-budgeted, and the needs are huge. Out of this need and this realization, UNESCWA and the League of Arab States and many partners that I will mention now committed to the water agenda an initiative called the Arab Initiative for Mobilizing Climate Finance for Water. It's the AIM Climate Finance. And it was a commitment made at the 2023 UN Water Conference by UNESCWA, the League of Arab States, the Green Climate Fund, Islamic Development Bank, FAO, and the government of Sweden as a commitment to the water action agenda. It aims to develop the rationale for climate resilient projects in the water sector and develop capacities for accessing climate finance. So today we have a good mixture of panelists with us from member states, from partner organizations, regional and international organizations, and looking at climate finance. We will explore the climate finance flows and the finance flows to the water sector in the region. What are the challenges, the opportunities for advancing on this climate stage? To start off, we have with us Ms. Carol Shani-Shofin, who is the Director of the Arab Center for Climate Change Policies and Cluster Lead for Climate Change and Natural Resource Sustainability Cluster at UNESCWA. She will provide the background and set the stage for us on climate finance flows in the Arab region. Carol?
Thank you, Ziad. And thank you for sticking around, all of you, until the last event of the day. Thank you very much. So what I'd like to do is just share with you some figures. Sometimes it's good to have a graph in front of you. And one of the first orders of magnitude I'd like to share is generally about the amount of climate finance that the Arab region receives. And based on the former or the current set of nationally determined contributions that were issued before the last round, the Arab region had asked for $570 billion as needs until 2030. The receipt in terms of principal climate finance, significant climate finance, MDB finance, was only $65 billion over 12 years, 2010 to 2012. And then those that were pure climate finance, as the OECD talks about, principal climate finance, was less than the 47 billion. That's not very much for 22 countries over a 12-year period. So thanks again. I shout out to OECD. We use a lot of their data on climate-related development finance on their database, and we appreciate all the efforts being done with the DAC committee for that. We'd like to share with you some of the figures that helped us help us develop this initiative that Ziad just mentioned to put into context what's happening in terms of climate finance for the water sector. So first, again, as we look regionally, the Arab region has been getting more climate finance recently, and we see this actually in a lot of developing countries. There has been an increase, and specifically in the last 2 years, we see that climate finance totally for the Arab states has increased. However, mitigation remains 2.5 times more than adaptation. And bear in mind that most climate finance for water is adaptation finance, though there is a movement a little bit more with wastewater into mitigation finance. Why is this difficult? Why is there not enough finance for adaptation and much less for water? Well, we know that it's costly for water. We've been hearing around all day today, and we'll be hearing tomorrow that it's a bit complex to mobilize resources for water. Some of the issues that were not raised already is that water is capital intensive. It has long payback periods. It's undervalued. It's a public sector service. There's transboundary dynamics that deal with water in the Arab region, where 66% of water resources in the Arab region transfer at least one international border. And it's hard and inefficient to manage sometimes. However, if we don't work on water, there's a multitude of sectors that are affected, not only for drinking, when we're talking about making sure water for all for drinking and sanitation, but across industries. So really more investment is needed. So that was the impetus of setting up this Arab initiative for mobilizing climate finance for water. Ziad already introduced it to you. This was launched at the 2023 UN Water Conference that was held in headquarters under the umbrella of the Water Action Decade. And we're very pleased to have with us here the IsDB, the Green Climate Fund, and the FAO online. She will be joining us soon. And this is being supported also by the government of Sweden in partnership with the League of Arab States. So again, what are the figures when we think about climate finance for water? The numbers have been improving. So this is now specifically related to the water sector for Arab states is what you're seeing. You're seeing a good jump between 2021 and 2022 in terms of climate finance. With the blue, they're showing climate finance for water for adaptation. It's a good share. We're seeing a good opening. However, water is still just 7% of total climate finance flows to the Arab region, and a region that is one of the most water scarce in the world. There's a disconnect here in terms of showing the science and the climate rationale for climate finance. We're also seeing a shift or a movement towards finance becoming more significant in nature than principal in nature. And unfortunately, I think with the question even asked in the last session about where is climate and where is development finance going right now with the political currents that are going on for the last couple of months, there is a concern that perhaps water under a climate condition might end up becoming water on a development condition, and we should keep that in mind because climate finance has an obligation as we set up the new nationally determined contributions and we follow under the Paris Agreement, where the North is supposed to assist the South with $300 billion annually in the coming decade. Well, we need to know what is climate finance and what is development finance. And this is helping us identify, again, what's principal, which is what is under the Paris, or significant that might be a little bit of a watered down financial flow, while important still. We also see that MDBs are really taking a role. They've taken on the mantle of financing water. What we were showing before were funds provided by the DAC countries, mostly bilateral. That's what this the blue and red was showing. Here is the growth actually in development bank, multilateral development bank financing, showing in red how much it has increased over the coming years. So really the ability of MDBs to mobilize and be catalytic actors for bringing in financing for the water sector is impressive in the Arab region, and it's growing. And that's something that we can look for, I think, as a continuing trend. And then just to wrap up a couple other ideas as we have our discussion, The type of finance for water is disaggregated. The light blue, as you see on the screen, is for large-scale water supply and sanitation systems. However, we're seeing an increase, for example, in river basin management, which a lot of water practitioners like as we talk about integrated water resource management at the basin level. This is refreshing. That's that pink line that you see. It's coming into the fold as we look at climate finance at a basin level. There's also opportunities here for growing. There's also an increase in water for agriculture, which is very strategic as we talk about food systems, water for agriculture, as well as water for drinking. Again, the trend is increasing in the last couple of years. Finally, however, it's important to highlight the differentiation between flows between Arab states. Now, as UNESCWA, we love all our member states equally, the 22 members of the Arab states that we serve. However, some countries have been more successful than others in coordinating between ministries and mobilizing funds for water. I think you can see who the winners or the ones who have been more active are. What I'd like to highlight, though, is the leave no one behind concept that the 6 Arab LDCs are receiving almost nothing of the funds coming in. Less than 6% of climate finance for water, and indeed climate finance generally, is going to LDCs. And they are the most vulnerable. They have been identified with those in need. And you could see in the map that is on the screen, which is from our regional initiative to assess the impact of climate change on water resources and vulnerability in the Arab region. RCAR is an initiative we have with the Arab states. UNESCWA coordinates with others. You see all the red? Those are the LDCs, and they're getting not enough money. So there's a disconnect between need, the climate rationale, and where the money is going. And I think that needs to be redressed as we move forward. And then the last point to make here is the issue of debt. Yes, we need public sector and private sector work together. We need innovative forms of finance. But the countries of this region, some on the stage, others also in the region, are suffering at the regional level $1.3 trillion of debt. So more debt finance is not exactly going to be sustainable under the conditions and under the fragility and conflicts that we are also experiencing in the region. Concessional debt, non-concessional debt, it's still all debt. So there has to be ways also to reduce that burden on public budgets if it's going to be sustainable. UNESCWA is working on climate SDG debt swaps with countries to help address that. We're working with the League of Arab States on mobilizing climate finance, not only for water, but other sectors. And I will just highlight that in the collaborative initiative that we are doing under the AIM Climate Finance for Water initiative, there are several recommendations. You can find them online. We have copies of the policy note here, but basically thinking about data access, the climate rationale, thinking about governance, water use efficiency, capacity building, holistic approaches like integrated water resource management and policy coherence across sectors and strategies, looking at de-risking, focusing on partnerships, and of course, innovative financial measures. All that can help us to move forward and help to mobilize climate finance for the water sector and a sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. I think that's an excellent way to set the stage for our discussion. For those of you who are interested, we have a few copies of the climate finance policy issued under the AIM initiative. But I think, Carol, you might have had some more updated numbers than the policy. And actually, and also on the commitment, we have the UNESCWA Water Development Report on the midterm review for the Arab region. For those of you that are interested, we have a few copies available at our table. Again, thank you, Carol, for this. It set the stage not only on the quantity of flows that still needed for the region, but also on the quality of financial flows that are also needed. This is a very important point. And as you've highlighted, that the finance is not reaching those in need and those that are most impacted. And this is an important point. But we do have some success stories in the region on accessing climate finance. And this brings us to our first speaker, Dr. Jihad Al-Mahamid, who is the Secretary General for the Ministry of Water and Irrigation in Jordan. And Jordan currently is the chair of the Arab Ministerial Water Council. Dr. Jihad, the need in Jordan is large. Jordan is a a water scarce country, one of the most water scarce countries in the region. The challenges are increasing with the increased number of refugees that you're hosting in the country and increasing conflict, impacts of climate change on Jordan. However, Jordan has been successful in accessing finance and climate finance in the region. It has been one of the most successful countries. So I will ask you to share some of your experiences in Jordan in accessing finance, in flows to the water sector, the coordination that is done at the country level with us.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I would like to thank Islamic Development Bank and also OECD and the World Water Council and the World Bank Group for their invitations and to emphasize one of the most important resources, water. First of all, let me give you some figures about the situation water in Jordan. Jordan is considered the poorest country regarding with water resources. Nowadays, the per capita in Jordan is not exceed more than 61 cubic meter per year. This is coming not only from the demand, also from the climate change. It's highly affected in the region, especially in Jordan. If we are looking about the spatial distribution of the rainfall, for example, this year, the amount of rainfall is not more than 50% from the long-term average. That's why we have many issues has been raised, like drought management in Jordan. Jordan now is considered, how to make predictions and how to make management in order to reduce the effect of drought management. And also we have some new issues regarding with the flood management, because the rainfall behavior has been completely changed. That's why, we don't have the continuity of what we call it of the rainfall. That's why you have to do, or you have to make what we call the early systems in some area in order to reduce the effect of the climate change. Because we don't have this, what you call it, the gap between demand and supply in Jordan. Now we are looking for non-conventional water resources. Jordan nowadays, he is busy, to implement one of the largest projects in Jordan, desalinated waters to supply all of governorate in Jordan around 300 million cubic meter per year. Why you use, these resources? Because as you know, the amount of rainfall has already decreased from year to year. That's why we need sustainable resource. And also we need the resource is not changed with the climate change, and we need sustained quality. That's why we have nowadays, to implement this largest project in Jordan. Also, Jordan is considered like a successful country regarding with attracting climate finance and engaging in innovative finance for the water sectors, particularly like the climate SDG debit swap donor nexus by UNESCWA, which can be attributed to a combination of strategic, institutional, and diplomatic strength. Jordan has already strength in institutional maturity, political communication, strategic planning, and donor engagement capability. Here I will break down of the key strength in Jordan regarding water sectors. First, strong policy and institutional framework. Jordan has already developed a robust water sector policy aligned with national water strategy to cover the period 2023 up to 2040 and the climate change policy. Also, the country already has nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement, clarify, prioritize water security, making water a flagship climate adaptation sectors. Also, Jordan has a high-level political commitment. Senior government leadership including the Prime Minister and like ministries, water, irrigation, environment, and planning, has actively championed climate finance mobilizations. Also, Jordan has positioned itself as a climate vulnerable country that also offers stable governance, making it a trust partner for donors. Regarding with effective donor coordinations, Jordan has been proactive in working with multilateral and bilateral development partners, including the Green Climate Fund, GCF, European Investment Bank, EIB, USAID, and others. Also, Jordan has established coordinations, membership like the Jordan Development Partner Forum to align support and avoid duplications. Regarding with innovation in finance, Jordan was one of the first Arabic countries to pilot the climate SDG debit swap donor nexus initiative with UNESCWA, which combines debit relief with investment in CDG aligned with climate projects. Also, it has explored blended finance models, combining public, private, and concessional funds key to secure large-scale water infrastructure finance. Also, Jordan has preparation of bankable projects, which invested in strong feasibility studies like risk assessment and cost recovery models, marking its water project attractive to climate functions. Also, the use of public-private partner, PPPs, and the clear legal frameworks further de-risk the projects. And this is the main activities Jordan has been already taken into consideration under the climate change. Also, currently Jordan has already created what we call it a nexus units. This nexus unit is combined between water, agriculture, and energy and environment sectors in order to optimal use of the available resources. What we try, through this nexus to reduce the risk, not only for one sector, but for combined for all sectors together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jad, for sharing experiences of Jordan. Clearly, there's a strategic roadmap that has been put in Jordan with strong collaboration and coordination between different institutions. That's clear in your approach in accessing funding. And I think also this Nexus unit that you've talked about is a clear indication of that coordination, which helps in mainstreaming water across several sectors and accessing the increasing funds. Next, we will move to another example and case study from the region with Mr. Mahdi Klas, the General Director of Investment, Financing and Professional Organizations from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources and Fisheries from Tunisia, to also share with us the experience in Tunisia, the plans to increase access to finance to the water sector with the increasing demands in Tunisia. We know that Tunisia has been going through a drought period for the last several years, and this has increased the demand for the water sector, for financing, for improving the efficiencies in the water sector. Mr. Mahdi will speak in French, but we will have simultaneously on the screen an interpretation of his word. Mr. Mahdi, please.
شكرا زياد. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. في آخر الجلسة, on va changer en français. Okay. Très bien. Donc, tout d'abord, je suis honoré d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui pour partager l'expérience de la Tunisie en termes de résilience au changement climatique et aussi sur le financement de sa stratégie pour 2050. Tout d'abord, nous allons répéter que la situation hydrique de tous les pays arabes qui est en difficulté, et essentiellement la Tunisie qui est passée avec 10 années de sécheresse et 5 années consécutives ce qui a causé une pénurie d'eau et une situation hydrique qui n'est pas d'actualité en Tunisie. Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui à un moment charnière pour l'avenir de l'eau dans le monde arabe. Notre pays, comme d'autres, fait face à un stress hydrique accéléré. Notre disponibilité en eau par habitant a passé de 1000 mètres cubes en 1960 à moins de 400 mètres cubes par an en 2024, soit largement sous le seuil de pénurie d'eau. Plus de 80% de nos ressources renouvelables en eau sont déjà exploitées et les projections climatiques annoncent une baisse de 10 à 30% supplémentaire des apports d'ici 2050. C'est dans ce contexte d'urgence que la stratégie nationale au 2050 a été élaborée avec une réponse à deux objectifs majeurs. Un, garantir une sécurité hydrique de la Tunisie et deux, renforcer sa résilience face au changement climatique. Mais aucun de ces défis ne pourra être relevé sans une mobilisation financière d'envergure et l'intégration des fonds climatiques dans notre montage financier. Permettez-moi de structurer mon intervention autour de trois axes principaux. Un, les besoins d'investissement de la stratégie au 2050. Deux, la mobilisation des financements internes et externes. Et trois, l'importance des fonds climatiques pour catalyser la transformation du secteur. De prime abord, les investissements en chiffres. La réalisation des objectifs de cette stratégie nécessite des investissements massifs, estimés à plus de 8 millions de dollars sur une période 2023-2050 à prime abord, répartis sur des principales composantes qui sont le développement de la sécurité des ressources avec une mobilisation des fonds pour les barrages, les forages, les interconnexions des barrages, mais aussi pour la modernisation des réseaux d'eau potable et d'irrigation avec un montant de 2,2 millions de dollars. La réutilisation des eaux usées traitées pour atténuer 50% des réutilisations à l'horizon de 2035, des dessalements de l'eau de mer pour couvrir le sud et le centre de la Tunisie et la préservation des ressources et d'adaptation avec pour lutter contre la pollution, des solutions fondées sur la nature. La mobilisation de ces financements internes et externes devant de tels besoins, la Tunisie a fait un défi approche plurisectorielle. Un financement public national du budget de l'État qui participe à raison de 40 à 50% des investissements annuels, une tarification progressive de l'eau qui est une réforme pour l'encouragement de l'économie d'eau, assurer la viabilité financière des opérateurs, mais aussi une mobilisation des banques de développement et des bailleurs de fonds internationaux, comme la KfW et la Banque africaine de développement, ainsi que l'Union européenne. L'importance de ces fonds climatiques est aussi imminente. C'est laquelle des fonds climatiques qui prend toute son importance, ces fonds tels que le Fonds vert pour le climat, le FEM, la Facilité africaine de l'eau qui permet à la Tunisie de lever des ressources complémentaires à des taux concessionnels, accélérer l'innovation, par exemple la réutilisation des eaux usées traitées, d'alléger ou d'aligner la planification sectorielle sur les objectifs de développement durable, les ODD, et aussi l'accord de Paris, et aussi de renforcer la résilience locale, le fonds d'action climatique communal financé à hauteur de 7,6 millions de dollars par l'Union européenne. L'exemple concret d'investissement avec le soutien des fonds climatiques, je parle bien évidemment de l'expérience de financement de la station de dessalement de Sfers, bien évidemment près de 300 millions de dollars, le projet pilote pour la recharge artificielle de la nappe qui est financé pour économiser annuellement 60 millions de mètres cubes d'eau, des agroécologies pour l'irrigation goutte à goutte, pour, bien évidemment, déployer dans les zones vulnérables avec un objectif de 100 000 hectares. Des projets prioritaires qui sont identifiés maintenant entre 2026 et 2030 avec un coût de l'ordre de 11 555 millions de dinars tunisiens, bien évidemment sur des investissements globaux de 74 515 millions de dinars, soit 15% des investissements répartis sur 3 années. Voici la liste des projets qui ont été identifiés avec ces montants et on a des fiches bien identifiées sur plusieurs langues, sur des investissements qui sont prêts à être exploités. Je vais m'attarder, et permettez-moi de m'attarder sur une innovation majeure, qui est le mécanisme de swap de dette contre les actions climatiques promu par la Commission économique et sociale pour l'Asie occidentale, l'UNESCWA, qui se base sur un principe de transformation d'une partie des dettes extérieures du pays en investissement direct dans des projets climatiques. C'est un exemple dans lequel la Tunisie a programmé comme pilote en 2023 un modèle de financement et qui doit être finalisé incessamment avec l'UNESCWA. Grâce à ce mécanisme, ces fonds sont redirigés en partie vers le financement et l'extension des stations de dessalement, des constructions des barrages et des transferts gravitaires de l'eau de barrages, ainsi que une première phase des projets pour la construction des stations photovoltaïques pour des stations de pompage pour l'eau potable, au bénéfice d'environ 700 000 habitants dans les régions les plus exposées aux sécheresses. Ces mécanismes présentent 3 avantages. 1, qui est de diminuer la pression sur les dettes publiques. 2, qui est accélérer la réalisation des projets prioritaires pour la sécurité hydrique. Et 3, renforcer la crédibilité de la Tunisie auprès de ses partenaires internationaux. La simulation montre que si un mécanisme, que ce mécanisme a amplifié et pourrait représenter jusqu'à 10% de plan d'investissement de l'eau 2050. Comme conclusion, permettez-moi de dire que je pourrais dire aussi que garantir la sécurité hydrique à l'horizon 2050 et réussir l'adaptation au changement climatique exige une mobilisation sans précédent. 8 milliards de dollars d'ici 2050, dont moins de 35 à 40% devront venir des fonds climatiques et des partenaires internationaux. La réussite passe par l'intégration des standards internationaux, la transparence dans l'allocation des ressources et l'innovation des services de résilience. Chaque euro investi via les fonds climatiques catalyse en moyenne 3 à 4 euros auprès des bailleurs de fonds bilatéraux et multilatéraux et facilite également l'implication du secteur privé. Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Merci, Monsieur Mehdi. And I think this was our treat for those French speakers in the audience with us today. Thank you, Mr. Mehdi. And I think it's very good what you've shown, how you've approached this, the strategy, setting the needs, mobilizing for internal, external funds, international climate finance, and sharing with us the experience of innovative projects through the SDG Debt Swap Initiative. And it's an interesting statement that you ended with, that every euro from climate finance catalyzes around 3 to 4 euros from bilateral, multilateral banks. This is very interesting. And this brings us to our next speaker, our dear friend, Mr. Amgad Al-Mehdi, who's the regional manager for Middle East and North Africa with the GCF. Amgad, we've heard from Carol on the financial flows, climate finance flows to the region, quality, quantity. We've heard from Jordan on their experiences and their strength and collaboration on attracting funding. We've heard from Tunisia, their strategy and their plans in attracting this. From your experience and as a partner in this AIM initiative, and you've been involved throughout all of its activities, can you share with us some lessons, some challenges, some opportunities that you've seen from member states within this region or maybe outside of this region on how to access this climate finance, and what are some lessons learned that you can share with us?
Thanks, Ziad, for that, and thanks for the previous speaker for your highlights. I think I wanted to take that point in terms of like how to talk about improving access to climate finance in the region here, and what are really the challenge we are facing. If we talk from the perspective of the Green Climate Fund as largest climate multilateral fund that been established under Paris Agreement or UNFCCC framework. I think it's from GCF, we work on two fronts, or we have two big windows where we support or provide climate finance. One is really project finance, where in a simple way, we don't really have a cap on the scale of the project that can access finance. But of course, it's required those projects need to be climate driven projects. So the problem that we try to tackle or to solve need to be triggered by climate. As Carol mentioned, like it need to bring that climate rationale, the climate story behind this project. So that's one window. The second window we're really like not fully utilized in that region as well, which is really like the readiness support, which building the capacity in the region. And I wanted to take this in a way how we can actually use this to improving access to climate finance, taking also the existing initiative like AIM for like water finance. So I wanted to frame it in like in 5 key messages here. The first one really like what we have seen how to improve and what are the challenge. I think it's the first one is really like improving access required an institutional strengthening, as we heard from Jihad in Jordan, but also early upstream project preparation. So what we have seen in terms of water sector or to mobilize climate finance, it's not just the capacity in terms of like the technical skills or even the fiduciary requirements, but really how we embedded the climate finance within the key ministry like water, agriculture, food and energy as well, and environment. So we have seen the climate finance literacy, it's a key gap in the skills within those ministries. The second point, it's really the innovation in terms of the climate finance. So we're talking about blended finance. And we are lucky at the Green Climate Fund because we really work across all financial instruments. So we're providing grants, we're providing concessional loans, we're providing guarantees and equity and bonds, and also climate debt swap as well. But when we talk about blended finance, we always see blended finance come very much with only 2 instruments, like grant and concessional loan. And we keep saying, oh, we want to use the blended finance as a vehicle to fill the gap in water finance. I think we really need to think about innovative finance where we can actually bring different number of financial instruments together and blend it together to be able really to mobilize more capital, mainly from the private sector as well, and how the climate finance can be used as a vehicle to de-risk that investment, which again, it's one of our key mandates for allocating climate finance is actually to de-risk that investment and take even the upfront risk and upfront cost. The third point, it's really like the coordination. And I don't want to highlight coordination within the country or within different ministries, but I wanted to highlight coordination between sectors. I think today in the morning, I think Hank was talking about like water value. We have heard about risk sharing, value of water. I think what we are really lacking is also that coordination between water, energy, food, and ecosystem. And that really required to be able really to look at the co-benefits and the water value across sectors. One of the key challenge in water project is actually to be able to monetize that value, to be able to estimate that value. And we will not be able to do this if we just focus on the water sector, because we have to maintain water as a public good. So we really need to look at the whole circular economy and look at the value of water across the whole value chain. And that's where we can actually look at the opportunity of revenue streams for water projects. The point number 4 I wanted to make, it's really that collaboration. So we talk about coordination across sector, collaboration. And AIM initiative, it's one of those initiatives that allow that, again, collaboration across the region between financial institutions and key partner in the region with ISCO as a lead for that, and a League of Arab States. And there are multiple of initiatives of those, but we are not really coordinate between all those initiatives. And sometimes even within one entity, they can be like starting multiple initiatives or several initiatives without really a proper coordination between them. So, and that's coming with the previous point, the coordination across sector, but also require coordination between all different initiatives that also exist in that region. Last point I wanted to make it really like one of the key lessons learned we have learned across the region. I will share some fact before I share that point. When we look at GCF finance, so GCF established in 2010, we start our operational in 2015. We start to allocate money in 2015. So we've been working for like very much like 9 years or one decade. And in the region here, we managed to finance a project for a value of 4.6 billion with our capital of 1.2 billion. Maybe the numbers sound nice, but it's the lowest region comparing to all other regions within GCF. It's only 8% from all our total finance that we have managed to allocate over those 10 years. And also, if you look at how much from those 4.6 billion that been allocated in that region under climate finance in the water sector, it's only 12%. So that again come with the highlighting like lacking of the capacity of blended climate rationale within the water project design. And I wanted to close with my last point, which is really like improving access to early engagement and local design or local co-design. Water project, especially if we talk about adaptation projects in the water sector, those need to be really have an early engagement and also a local co-design with local partners, local communities, and also the national government as well. And to look at the opportunity of the potential implementing partners and think about the paradigm shift in that early engagement as well. So we have seen like a lot of projects that goes and work with the community, but we are not really empowering those communities. So we really need to think about, can we establish like an evolving fund for the community? And luckily we have project in Jordan, like Jilmi project with UNEP and also with IUCN, where we're actually going to develop that evolving fund for communities that work on agriculture and irrigation management in Jordan. And we'll try to take this concept now for other projects as well. So I think to summarize really the message here, I think what we're really looking for as a lesson learned, we really need to improve our institutional capacity and blend that climate finance within the different sectors. We really need to look at coordination across all sectors and integrated planning. We really need to encourage more collaboration within the country and between countries and look at those regional initiatives. There are multiple of initiatives that actually try to bring climate finance capacity to the region. So we have like a training will be organized with UNESCO in May that bring actually 12 countries from the region in Cairo for 3 days from 12 to 15 of May in Cairo. We have also another training organized with Union for Mediterranean and Arab Water Council, again, how to access GCF finance. That will be in June, bring 10 countries again from the region as well. And then we're turning that training to become as online training as well. So anyone can access that training anytime. And I wanted to close here, but just to close with reaffirm again the message, GCF, it's here in the region to work with all partners. We are happy to work with you from day one. When you have an idea, reach out to us. We'll be happy to work with you in that journey. We are not alone to access climate finance. We can guide, we can support, because we have different windows that really can support you. So we have readiness programs that really support countries, but also for entities that bring a project, we have a very unique window. We call it project preparation facility. When you give a concept note to GCF and that concept note approved, that's my last point. You can really access 1.5 million to develop your concept note to fund the purpose. Thank you. I'm sorry for that.
Thank you, Amram.
That was very interesting. Thank you. Just sorry to cut you off, but we've been given a warning on time, so we don't want to hold people up. I'll move to our next speaker, I guess, Nidar Zaid, who doesn't need to be introduced. He's hosting us here. Thank you, Nizar, for this opportunity. And then, Nizar, I've looked at the ISDB water sector policy, and it emphasizes a lot sustainable and resilient water and sanitation systems for all, mentions climate change. And also within that strategy, there is the water sector policy strategy. There is a focus on strategic blending of finance. Could you just share with us of what is the vision within that strategy in the Arab region, and what role ISDB plays on this blending of finance and supporting Arab countries in accessing this climate finance?
Well, thank you, Ziad. First of all, Amgad mentioned about the concept of long-term money, so you'll get one tomorrow morning. We'll start with that. Now, actually, what we have been doing in blended finance basically is try to see how we can blend our resources internally, first of all, and then with other partners in the Arab region or beyond, to make our financing more accessible to all member countries in the Arab region, and to make it actually, to help them actually access climate-aligned resources, basically. Let me maybe, I think, to illustrate my intervention here, I will give one example, real life example. Actually, we had a few years ago a recent one. Actually, it's ongoing, still ongoing project in Mauritania. And the gentleman who was working on this is sitting with us. Actually, it's called Kifa Water Supply Project, basically, but it's quite a large program, $370 million. It's quite big. IDB cannot do that on its own. So what we did is actually using our concessional resources and market-based resources, basically internally. This is the first step. This is what we did first, and then of course we went beyond that and tried to mobilize resources from the what we call Arab Coordination Group. So we had with us the Saudi Fund for Development, the Kuwait Fund, the Arab Fund for, all of them are here, Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, Abu Dhabi Fund, and of course the government of Mauritania. So by blending our resources internally, first of all, as I said, and with the other partners, we were able actually to provide concessional resources to Mauritania and to a country which has serious problems, of course, with water supply, as you know, etc. And they are getting the water from the Fleuve Senegal, but it's dwindling, and the situation is not very, very clear. So we were able to do this actually through this blending. Yes. So yeah. I mean, of course, this project has many results, key results actually in targeting 550, almost 500,000 people actually would benefit from this project. Quite substantial, creating jobs, so about 3,000 jobs. Equity inclusion is our part of this program, of course, because we will be reducing the burden on women actually in fetching water and collecting the water for the. And of course, the climate resilience by shifting dependency, as I said earlier, from dwindling groundwater to sustainable surface water. The project enhances long-term resilience, actually. Yeah. And of course, the project has, and I think Amjad mentioned about it, he mentioned about coordination and cooperation. Here, actually, we are talking about cooperation with the other Arab Coordination Group members. For example, we signed with them MOUs, and we are conducting with them joint supervision missions, working with them. And of course, we have also working with them on building the capacity in the internal institutions in Mauritania, La Société Nationale des Eaux Mauritanie, for example, etc., and other partners. So this is what we are trying to do, basically. That was the gist, actually, of this blending financing. How to do it? First of all, internally within the bank, and then with other parties. Now, I'm sure it's not really breaking news. We are joining the GCF finally. So we would believe that one of the major sources of financing for us will be the GCF. Will be implementing agent for the GCF, and hopefully, inshallah, we will try to mobilize resources for the Arab region and to increase our footprint. Thank you.
Thank you, Nizar. Thank you. Thank you for that concrete example. And again, continuing on the point of coordination, cooperation to access blended sources of finance, as you said. We will move to our final speaker, another strong partner with the AIM initiative. We have with us online, glad you could join us. We have Eva Peck from Land and Water Office, Agricultural Water Management, Land and Water Division, FAO. Eva is with us, and we've worked a lot with FAO on this, and we also are working with them on the water scarcity initiative. So Eva, let me ask you, FAO works to support agriculture under conditions of increasing water scarcity and climate change. What lessons could you share with us from this application of financial instruments developed to support drought management in the Arab region and other parts of the world?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we do. Please go.
Thank you. I'm very happy and honored to participate and to share the perspective of FAO on this topic. So I would start with just a short explanation on how agriculture, water, drought, and climate finance are interlinked. Agriculture is the most affected sector by drought, but what we see is that drought resilience building is financed mostly through the water sector, and climate funds play a big role in catalyzing sufficient funds for this purpose. Actually, FAO developed a tool which is called Drought Finance Tracker. This tool builds on a large language model to analyze the official development assistance flows registered by the OECD, but extrapolating only the drought-related projects out of the all climate-related ones. So almost 40% of the drought-related projects over the past 22 years belong to the water sector, equaling around 25 billion USD compared to the 22% under the agriculture sector. So financing water sector and financing drought resilience in the agriculture sector basically goes hand in hand. And this is particularly pronounced in countries with default water scarcity, such as the Arab region. Nonetheless, this is related to the official development assistance, which consists mostly of grant instruments and partly debt instruments. If we want to assess the suitability of further instruments, usually we group financial instruments into three, based on the physical appearance of drought. So the first large window is generally financing resilience building in drought-prone areas during off-drought periods. This is a longer-term, more phased and systematic intervention to build a resilient environment. The second window is to provide early response when drought is already forecasted, but impacts can still be mitigated. Typically, this is the window for financial instruments that can be rapidly deployed, including index-based insurance, micro-saving, microloans, and so on. And I must say that this is the most intricate phase because this is technology-based. It requires very accurate early warning systems, and forecasting capacities are still limited in many, many countries. So to manage the risk associated with financial instruments for this window, the first thing is to invest in forecasting technologies, preferably beyond the usual 10 days, 1 month time span. And the third window is for the recovery, when we have to manage the full-scale impacts. In most cases, this phase involves instruments suitable for emergency situations, including grants, concessional loans, and so on. And I think the key point when we want to identify good practices in deploying financial instruments is to address the issue of periodicity of drought. Because drought, unlike climate change, has not yet been decided whether it is or not a systematic risk. And this is partly because of the unpredictable periodicity. This poses a sort of business risk for merely drought-related investment. So the best way to manage this risk is to tap on the potential of co-benefits in the sense that we design instruments that has multiple objectives. Drought resilience related objectives combined with development objectives can ensure immediate returns with or without drought scenarios. And these might also attract the private sector more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eva, for sharing with us these interesting instruments that are drought related but are very relevant to the region that's experiencing more extreme events and droughts. And I think this is very interesting. The tools, the 3 phases of funding that's needed, and drought as a business risk. Thank you. This is very interesting. I think we'll open the floor for any questions. I know we've been asked by the MC. There's a question back there. If you could have a mic. Yes, the lady there. Yes.
Thank you so much for the panelist's intervention. My question for bankers, is there water finance guideline criteria taxonomy that could be a starting point to entice bankers to study developing instruments or products for water finance? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Okay. So I'll give Amgad and Nizar a chance to answer that, but I'll also give a chance to Carol because the taxonomy is a topic close to her heart. So maybe we'll start with you, Amgad.
Thanks, Dalia, for that question. From GCF, yes. So we have actually one of the things that we found, it's actually lacking of the knowledge about climate finance and how you design a water project. So we have put a few products that really answer that. So we have first the water strategy that really communicate what type of project you can invest in under climate finance. And then we have the project design guidelines that take you step by step how you design your project to meet the requirement for climate finance, and also give also a different applications or different example for like adaptation project, for also water reuse, for wash, and also for flood mitigations. So there is a number of documentation you can access through the websites available that can really help you as a banking system. Plus also we have a clear modality for the banking system to turn the banking system or to support the banking system to become a green banking and invest in climate resilient project. And I'm happy to take this as offline discussion.
Nizar?
Thank you. Actually, for us, the applications are less structured. Basically, there's no such documents pre-prescribed, let's say, or predefined documents. But what we usually do is, and Ziad was mentioning our water policy, basically. So we look at our water policy on one hand, and the country's water policy, and see how we can match. This is one of the steps to start with. There is another tool which we use actually with member countries, what we call member country partnership strategy. This is a 3-year document where we agree with the countries we are working in, what are we going to do over the next few years. Now, if it comes to, for example, to banks particularly, we could provide something which we call lines of financing, actually. So it could be line of financing, for example, for the agriculture sector or for industrial sector, etc., etc. When it comes to projects themselves, for us to consider this, we look at some elements which are the technical, the financial, environmental, social, climate change, etc. There are some elements actually we look at to check whether the project is ready. The most important, and this is actually goes in party to my countryman, Mr. Mehdi Khalas. Basically, he mentioned about il a des fiches de projet, but I think for banks in general, or at least the MDBs, to consider projects, we should go beyond fiche de projet, actually. We should make the readiness, etc. And maybe using the tools provided by the GCF, for example, okay, to see what is the project, what do we want to do, first of all? What is the objective? What's the outcome? And then, of course, based on that, we decide what are the components, the costing, And then the financial structure, how are we going to do that? Maybe part of it will come from, I don't know, from UNDP or from UNESCWA, if they are doing some studies or some capacity building, for example, etc. We decide on that. And of course, we have to assess all the environmental aspects, the social aspect, including the social aspects and the gender, youth, impact on youth, etc. And of course, this is something, honestly speaking, we have not been doing this previously, but it's quite recent, the climate change dimension. We use tool aware, etc., to assess the project, etc. And based on that, we can move. If, of course, the project is green only, ticks all the boxes, of course, there's submission to the processing by the bank and submission to the board, and we move ahead. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, on the taxonomy.
There's a lot of discussion, and some of the national players in the Arab region are talking about taxonomies to help identify whether their climate finance flows are climate aligned, green aligned. We see that already in green bonds. ESCO right now is actually working with the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, who serves as the coordinator of the Arab coordination group that involves IsDB, involves OPEC Fund, and about 8 other financial banks to discuss whether there should be guidelines for a common green/climate taxonomy for the Arab region. The question is that there's already one for the multilateral development banks. The Islamic Development Fund, through their climate division, has been very active with the World Bank and others to say what is climate, what is green, what is for mitigation, what is for adaptation. Water is under that umbrella, but it would also include things like sanitation or issues on the mitigation side, like what is the renewable energy, et cetera. What is important to think is whether water taxonomies need to be separate. I would argue that it's better to be within the context of green or climate so that it fits into a larger narrative. And then whether or not private sector banks, private institutions, central banks, and multilateral development banks should be aligned, at least for the Arab region, so that there's coherence and there's not too many standards being set that might impede investment. That's the discussion we're doing right now with the Arab Fund and the Arab Coordination Group that will be happening. We'll have another round with national banks, and we hope also, as we've discussed before, with the private sector related banks as well, to see if it's a white list, like the check mark that you had mentioning, Nizar. Is it a list of principles and guidance, or is it performance? Because that's the next level. And actually, a lot of banks who have bonds and instruments have used the taxonomy step performance. How much GHG has come out? How much water has been saved, et cetera? That's a high level metric to beat. But those different phases, and there's others, of course, that starts the conversation. But I would suggest, rather than just water taxonomies, to maybe look at a context of green climate so that there's more engagement on that. Thank you, Dali.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? No. Okay, so maybe we'll turn. I know it's been a long day, and you want to get out before it starts. So maybe I'll give a minute for each for any final reflections, and we'll wrap up. I'll start from that side to this side now. Nizar or Eva? Actually, let's start online. Sorry, Nizar. Yeah, in reverse order. Eva.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So no, I don't want to make it longer for participants, but I just wanted to say that the key lesson in my view is that drought resilience funding, especially in the Arab region, must be multi-layered and forward-looking. It's just not about reacting to crises, but also about investing smartly across the entire drought cycle, aligning both water and agricultural needs, designing instruments that deliver both resilience and development benefits. This is my view, and I would like really to thank you all again for having me today and for the opportunity to participate in this successful event.
Thank you, Eva, and we wish you were with us here. Thank you again for taking the time. Nizar?
Okay, even the mic is getting tired. Quick messages. Good projects always find financiers. That's really my key message to everyone. We as for example, again, we as MDBs, we say we are club, etc. But sometimes also we compete against each other. Sorry for good project. This is one. Two, the second, I mean, this is what we are trying to do in ISDB at least, is try to think creatively and not to work to do things in an area in a pre-formatted way. As I mentioned earlier, we are trying to use the GCF. We are using our own money to reduce the cost of financing. We are creating platforms for the youth, etc. We're using different combination with different partners. For instance, I mentioned this morning the work we are doing with the Gates Foundation, with King Salman, really, KS Relief, and other partner, Qatar Fund, etc., creating these special funds, etc. So basically, the going forward, we'll try to move creatively to obtain to get the same outcomes, basically, at the level of the member countries, but while reducing the cost, while understanding their difficulties after the COVID, after the inflation, after all the problems, and we don't know what's coming, actually.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nizar. I'm good.
Yeah, a quick final message. I think it's we talk about quality and quantity of the finance. I think it's more also quality in that region about the proposal. I think Nizar said it, good project can really attract finance, but also the role of the climate finance, it's actually to help you to make your project bankable and affordable in the water sector. So bankable to attract finance, affordable to ensure end user can really access to water. The role of the climate finance is actually to de-risk that investment and mobilize more capital. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mahdi.
Shukran. Non, je vais rebondir sur la question des fiches de projet, juste une clarification. Une bonne stratégie qui a été faite, c'est une stratégie qui est basée sur des études approfondies. Et c'est l'atout de notre stratégie au 2050. D'ailleurs, on a fait l'exercice avec l'UNESCWA dans le mécanisme recyclage des dettes et on a proposé 15 projets et on a retenu 5 projets. Ça, c'est innovant. Avec une priorisation, un alignement avec notre CDN, notre contrat national déterminé, des objectifs et des indicateurs qui s'alignent avec la stratégie de l'eau 2050 et stratégie de l'État et une bonne préparation des études qui a fait que nous avons pu mobiliser des fonds, que ce soit à travers l'UNESCWA et j'espère qu'on va mobiliser des fonds aussi sur les fonds verts et les fonds climatiques aussi. Merci.
Thank you, Cesar. I think, again, you're reinforcing the importance of good prepared projects that can attract funding. I think this point is being resonated again. Dr. Jihad?
I think we have, to recommend three issues. The climate change has become as real, is tangible. That's why we have to focus on climate finance, especially in mitigation and adaptations. I think in near future, we have to focus in water sector, especially in financial sustainability in water sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jihad. Carol, I'll give you the floor to wrap up. I'll first thank OECD and ISDB for hosting us. Thank the audience for being with us. And I'll give the floor for Carol, last reflections and to wrap up.
Thank you, Ziad. Thank you to all the partners. I mean, we've been working together on this for the last couple of years at the League of Arab States. This is under the Arab Ministerial Water Council that is currently led by Jordan, and the Council of Arab Ministers responsible for the environment that is responsible for the climate portfolio and the negotiations. So it's really been a partnership for the last few years, linking across sectors, which was one of the messages here. Just a last word, the nationally determined contributions that were referenced also by Mr. Mahdi, they were supposed to be updated by February of this year. Only 19 countries have made their submission as of last month. This is the opportunity to mainstream water and climate into the next round of NDCs, the NDC 3.0 they call. This is the time to make sure that as part of the conversation, water mainstreamed, especially in the Arab region, which is water scarce, facing drought, facing floods. This is the time to put it in, hopefully before September. Talk to your counterparts, get it in the national profiles, because this will influence how water is financed through climate and climate-related mechanisms over the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ziad, for moderating this very well. And thank you to all our partners. Wishing you all a very good night.
Excellent, excellent. You know, ختامه مسك, isn't it? the end is always the best, even if people look tired. But I'm sure once we go back home and refresh, you will come back tomorrow morning with additional energy. Thank you for such. I was following. To be honest, there is a lot of meat in your discussion that needs to be digested. I therefore invite our colleagues to give them a warm applause for such a wonderful contribution.